For some reason, he walks me to my car and he kisses me. And I don't understand why these men do this. I pulled back and patted him on the back, which I think gave the message. Unfortunately, my car wouldn't start, so I had to call him. The basis of her method is if you're looking for a needle in the haystack in the apps, in the whole wide world of dating, and we all know there's a lot of garbage on the apps, the best way to find the needle is to burn the haystack. It all boils down to we're looking for love. And I've noticed too that everyone wants to talk about it. P.S. When you do find your person, it will be perfect. I think of what Jane Austen wrote. Perhaps it is our imperfections that make us so perfect for one another. Welcome to 40 Dates in 40 Days. I'm Sarah Beth, your host. I recently turned 40 and decided to go on 40 dates in 40 days in hopes of finding my person. I'll be documenting this in close to real time and wondering right along with you, will she meet someone? So grab your cup of tea, we are going to spill it, settle in, it is time to yap. Welcome back to episode 11. This is week 5 of my dates. After this week, I have a week and a half left to go. So I am nearing the finish line. Hope it's dwindling. I actually, for my tea today, picked this very basic, boring, chipped mug because that is how I am feeling right now. Basic, boring, chipped, defeated, deflated. It's not going well. But the show must go on, so let's talk about it. This week, I'm going to skip the bad date stories because honestly, I just have a lot of bad dates this week to talk about. So we'll just avoid the negativity. I do have a really good relationship story that I want to share with you. This is actually from one of my high school teachers. Well, we're friends on Facebook, and she's been listening to the podcast and sent me her story with her husband, and it's really sweet. I'm going to read it in a moment. I do want to take just 1 second in defense of social media. This is the good part about it. I talked last episode about how nasty people are on TikTok, and they are. And I do think brain rot is a thing. Even though my livelihood is social media, I think there is a lot of negatives. But this reconnecting me with my high school teacher is one of the beautiful things about it. And I've had lunch with middle school friends who live across the country thanks to Facebook. I had a friend once pick up my sister from the airport where she was stranded and let her stay for the night because of Facebook. So I don't know why. I don't need to defend Facebook to anybody, but I just wanted to say that I do appreciate some aspects of social media, that being one of them. So let me read you her story that she sent in. She said, "Today is our anniversary. We've been married for 31 years. Here are some of the things we think helps us develop a good long-term relationship. Kindness and devotion to each other. We accept ourselves and the other, including shortcomings. We strive to grow individually and together, mentally, physically, spiritually. We enjoy time together, work, hobbies, hiking, chores. Our faith in God helps us to see outside ourselves and appreciate the other person in a selfless, unconditional way. He cherishes me, and I feel safe and protected by him. Where some can start to find personal routines or habits annoying, like how the other uses the toothpaste, he finds mine endearing because it's me. He treats me like a princess. We're honest about our needs to each other. We try to meet those needs, yet we are patient and honest about our limitations. Here's an example for each of us. If I am hungry, I go into power saver mode fast. He stops what he is doing and makes me something to eat, even if he is tired. I shield him from his allergens, dust, pollen, cats, and take care of him when he has weather headaches, no matter when they come on. Overall, we are excited to partner in this ride of life together and are devoted to continual growth together. P.S. When you do find your person, it will be perfect." I get very choked up reading this. I think of what Jane Austen wrote. Perhaps it is our imperfections that make us so perfect for one another, which was a quote I was not familiar with, but obviously I enjoyed it. So thank you for sending that in. It was very inspirational and encouraging. and I appreciate him. While I'm crying, let me tell you about one other thing that I don't know why I've not mentioned yet. For the tip jar recently, I went to a hotel opening, and in their courtyard, they were having a party, and they had a spontaneous poet. I don't know what he would call himself, but you'd give him a topic and he'd just write out a poem for you. It was really cool. I'd never seen anything like that. Of course, that's in Nashville because all the creativity descends on this city. So there was a long line for this guy, and I honestly couldn't stay very long at this event. So I'm really grateful that I got in and basically had to run away after that. But I told him, because it's in the middle of doing my podcast and going on all these 40 dates, I said the topic that I wanted a poem about was finding love. And so this is what he wrote. Finding Love by J.M. I will link to his Instagram in the show notes. I know there is a hand made to fit in mine. I know there is love, but it's a tricky thing to find. But I will search it out, love and joy and home, a place from where my heart nevermore will roam. So that one made me cry too. One thing, I don't know. I think I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but while we're on the topic, one thing that this process has really shown me, and I don't think this is some big revelation, but I have been struck by how universal the search for love is. And I'm watching Love on the Spectrum, which I didn't watch for a long time because I thought it would be exploitative, but it's not. It's cute. It's sweet. And all different walks of life, all different skill sets, all different, whatever people are bringing to the table or looking to be brought to them. It all boils down to we're looking for love. And I've noticed too that everyone wants to talk about it. Everyone that I've told what I'm doing immediately starts relating however they can, whether it's I'm single too and this has been my experience, or whether it's this is how I met my person, or I went on this really terrible date once, wherever the conversation leads, they're relating because this is so universal. And again, I'm not saying everybody wants to find love as if I'm the first person to discover that. We know that. But I have just been struck by it through this process, how core it is to the being of every person and how either unifying it can be when I'm having these conversations with everyone sharing their story, or divisive if you're on TikTok and people start ripping you apart because they're hurt by their own search for love, I think is what's generally going on there. So anyway, that's just an aside, but I hope you are encouraged as I was by that poem by JM. And like I said, I'll link to his Instagram. His handle is JM Street Poetry. John the Street Poet Guy. That's what his name is. So JM Street Poetry. Anyway. All right. So on to this week for me. A little bit about finding dates and the apps and all that. I have tried Duet. I mentioned that I think in a previous episode. I kept getting targeted ads on TikTok about it. So I tried it. It's not good. Honestly, it felt like every other app, but it also sort of felt like online dating 15 years ago. It asked a zillion questions, but it didn't seem to have a very sophisticated algorithm in who it showed you. I also think there aren't many people on it, so it was showing me a lot of people who do not live in Nashville. Very few who did. So if you're open to relocating, that could be worth looking into. I've not yet tried Facebook dating. I don't think I'm going to. I just cannot get excited about it. So it's still just Bumble and Hinge for me. I am considering doing an experiment maybe after these 40 dates are over, because obviously I can't go on a date with somebody who lives somewhere else spontaneously. But I am considering setting my location somewhere else and just seeing what happens. I don't know how often that is likely to work, but just trying it. In the meantime, when I get somebody who's long distance, whether it's a leftover from Alaska or from California when I was in San Francisco, or if it is somebody visiting Nashville or just a random person that somehow I got into their swiping sphere, I'm not particularly interested in starting a long distance relationship, but I am willing to consider it if it gets off the ground. I think it's really hard to get off the ground through a dating app. I think it's a lot easier when you meet somebody in real life, like the Montana guy that I dated for a couple of years. I met him in real life first. So I'm just saying, not opposed to long distance relationship, but I'm not really looking for it, and I would really want him to move here. So now when I see somebody who's long distance on the app, if I think they could be a good fit if they lived here, I'll swipe right, but I'm leaving it on them to start the conversation because that would imply that they are serious. So far, that has rarely happened that they started the conversation. So, and that's fine. On Bumble now, guys can start the conversation if they answer my one question that allows them to. So we'll see. That's my strategy for long distance. I did match with another Steve, which you may recall me saying Steves and Scotts were really problematic for me. This guy proved to be as well. He was very attractive and moved really fast to setting up a date, which prior to this experience, I did not like. Like, at least ask me a few questions first. But he was good looking and I need to set up these dates. So sure, let's go for it. He moved to text really fast, which I also don't usually like. But because we're setting up a date, it doesn't bother me as much. It's usually a little easier to coordinate setting up a date via text anyway. But then prior to actually setting up the date, he starts asking for more pictures, which of course is definitely a red flag. And my answer to that is always, well, there's 6 in my profile and they're current. And then he said, well, I'll send you one. I'm like, I don't care. I didn't ask for any. And so at that point, I just blocked him. Plain and simple. I didn't say anything else. I just blocked him. I did shortly, like within a half an hour, I got a call from a no caller ID number. So I don't know if that was him. It seems awfully coincidental to have not been him. But anyway, so got rid of that Steve real quick, which was too bad because he was very attractive. A couple questions that come up often on the apps or on bad dates. You may remember from my episode with Travis from Cherries, he said he doesn't care how many siblings you have until like the 7th or 8th date. And I have been thinking about that a lot on my dates because I find myself asking that question when I can't think of anything else to ask. I think these questions kind of fall into that category. They could be a little deeper, but when was your last relationship? How long was your longest relationship? I hate those questions as somebody who has not had many long-term relationships. I hate them because I feel that there's an implication there of if you've not had a long-term relationship, you don't know how to be in one, or if it's been a long time that you're single, what's wrong with you? I do think on the flip side, when was your last relationship can be helpful if it's been a really short time. Are you 2 months out of a 10-year marriage? But in general, I don't like those questions. I don't think they're as helpful as people think they are, in my personal opinion. They're also very commonly asked on The Bachelor. I don't know that The Bachelor should inform any of our dating conversation. So I'll just throw that out there as well. Speaking of questions people ask, so I mentioned last week this burn the haystack method, and I want to get into that a little bit. A friend sent it to me, and at first I thought, I don't know what this is. I'm not really interested in that. And then I heard it mentioned on another podcast, so I thought, well, at least look into it. And it's very interesting. Remember, I've said many times, what are you looking for is a kiss of death. That means they are looking for something very casual. No drama means they are the drama, which I accidentally recently went out with a guy whose profile said no drama, which normally is an automatic swipe left for me and should have been with this guy. I don't know if he added that after or if I missed that in his profile or if I had a lapse in judgment and thought on the whole he sounded okay. But no, should have stuck with my guns on the no drama because he was a weirdo. We'll get to him later. But anyway, so this burn the haystack method, you can look it up if you'd like. I think the easiest place to find information about it is on the creator's Instagram. Her name is Jenny Young. She is a professor of rhetoric at University of Wisconsin at Green Bay, and her Instagram is word_case_scenario. So like worst case scenario, only word case because she is a rhetoric professor. And that is the basis of her theory, her method, I should say, is okay, if you're looking for a needle in the haystack in the apps, in the whole wide world of dating, and we all know there's a lot of garbage on the apps. So if you're looking for the needle in the haystack, the best way to find the needle, and she may have borrowed this from somewhere. I don't know if this is her original thought, but the best way to find the needle is to burn the haystack. So that is what she advocates doing, is using rhetorical tools, which I'll talk a little bit more about, to get rid of the ones who are never going to be a good fit for you, who are only going to be problematic. And by so doing, you are burning the haystack. And she says, when you find someone, block him and burn. That's what she says, block and burn, so that they don't keep reappearing in your algorithm and you can whittle down the options to one that's actually a good fit for you. Now, I've not dug in enough to know how many success stories she has or whatever, but I do think her tools are really helpful, especially to women who are new to the dating apps, or maybe people who, I just think I kind of naturally read between the lines with people. So if that is not necessarily one of your skill sets or one that you haven't developed yet, I think this can be super helpful, because she's saying a lot of the things that I've been saying, hearing what they're really saying. No drama means they are the drama. And what are you looking for? Means I'm looking for something casual. She doesn't say those specifically, but it's along those lines. And she's got tons and tons of different rhetorical patterns that you can look for. And this may also apply to men. I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with what women's dating profiles look like. I'm sure women have rhetorical patterns as well. I'm just not sure if they're the same ones. So if you're a guy listening to this, maybe that's a market for you to burn the haystack from the women's side. Anyway, I picked out a few of the ones that I think are the most common and ones that I naturally avoid anyway. I've just never named them in the way she does. So one she says is test and apologize. That's what she calls it. It's when somebody says something really inappropriate and immediately apologizes. They say, oh my gosh, I should never have said that. I'm so sorry. I was just taken by your beauty, or whatever. She says the test, the inappropriate thing, was real. The apology is not. And what they're doing is giving themselves plausible deniability, so that if you say, hey, that was rude, they can say, you're overreacting. It was just a joke. I told you it was a joke, or I apologized, or whatever. She calls these guys boundary violators. And I just think she is so spot on. And it's also just creepy. You are a full-grown man. You are in control of what, not only what comes out of your mouth, but how much more so what you text. Like, that requires time. You have plenty of time to stop yourself from saying something inappropriate. So they're boundary violators. Stay away from those. The next, she calls it disciplinary/directive, or laying down the law. See this all the time, where the guy gives instructions. Does anyone actually want to date these days? If you're not ready, if you can't keep up, oh gosh, I hate that. See if you can keep up. I just hate it. It's very authoritarian. And she says what's most central to them is that they're angry. And that does come across that way. If you're not willing to abide, it doesn't feel like a strong boundary. It feels like a my way or the highway. And it's important to have boundaries, but I think you can set boundaries without telling strangers who they need to be. So stay away from the disciplinary and directive. If you've been on the dating apps, you definitely know what I'm talking about. The third, she says, is bombastic syntax. These are people who she says are scammers, or they use ChatGPT. And you've seen all these. These are people who write like they're writing a sonnet, except it doesn't really make any sense. Like they're writing Song of Solomon, if you're familiar with the book of the Bible. Your neck is like I think in Song of Solomon, it compares your neck to an ivory tower or something like that. It's so flowery that if you take away all the flowery stuff, there's no substance. So she calls that bombastic syntax, or BS. And then the last one that I'll highlight, she has so many, but the fluent in sarcasm, which I may have said that on this podcast before. I know I have, because I said, I think what they're really saying is they are jerks. If this were not a family-friendly podcast, I would call them something else. And that's what she basically says too. She says sarcasm is the lowest form of humor. It's angry and it's lazy humor. Now, I can be sarcastic with the best of them. This is not shade on sarcasm. But if you're using your very limited profile space to say you are fluent in sarcasm. She's saying they may be angry and lazy. Is that really what you're looking for? So I don't necessarily agree with everything she says. She certainly has a much stronger feminist stance. I mean, as a single woman in 2025, of course, I am a feminist, but she is much more so than I am. I think she takes a stronger stance on some things than I do. So I don't agree with everything that she says, but I think she has some really good tools to help women wade through the profiles and not get stuck with somebody that could have been avoided from the beginning had you been looking for the right things. So encourage you to check her out. Again, it's word_case_scenario. I'll put it in the show notes. And I definitely love, I'm not in the habit of it because I've been using apps for so long without doing this, but the block and burn to just get them out of your algorithm. Bumble doesn't make it really easy to block people because they want you to block and report. And I'm like, well, I don't want to report this person, although I have been reporting more recently, but most I'm like, I'm not going to report you. I'm not trying to be a Karen over here. I just don't want you in my algorithm. And so it is a little harder to block than I think it should be, but I like that principle. Just get them out of the way altogether. Let's move on with our lives. So that is Burn the Haystack method, if you're interested. A couple of other examples that she did not give, I don't believe, but that I've seen in my life is, I'm probably not toxic enough for you. I just think that is so rude. I don't know what category she would put that in terms of a rhetorical pattern, but I've seen it a lot. Just men assuming every woman wants this really toxic relationship. Nobody likes any good guys. Oh, let me tell you about this. So when I was in grad school, I won't say how this person was related to me because that is too obvious, but someone hit on me that I was not interested in. And I, again, had not really learned boundaries yet. So this conversation should have gone much differently than it did. The conversation never should have happened, actually. If I'd had better boundaries, it never would have happened, but it did. So he asked me out and I was not interested. I kid you not. The conversation ended with him saying, "This just goes to show that nice guys do finish last." Honestly, I almost laughed, which I didn't, fortunately, but it was so dramatic. But I feel like that's kind of what this is saying. I'm probably not toxic enough for you. It's just an insult to women veiled as a compliment to himself. I don't know quite how to explain this. I probably don't need to. I'm sure you get it. But that is one I see a lot that I hate. Automatic red flag. I just think anybody that is insulting another human in their profile is no go. If your first message to me is an insult, whether it's directed at me or not, no, I don't want to be with you. I also see a lot people who say they're somewhat public facing and they'll send photos later. So they might just have like a picture of their torso or them in the shadows or something. I just assume those people are married. Obviously, there is a way on Bumble to swipe incognito. I don't love this feature because I think it is only for married people. So I actually matched with a man who I had known as an acquaintance when I lived in Virginia Beach long ago in my 20s. I moved to Nashville in 2015. He's married, has children, and he and I met for dinner, and it was kind of it felt like a business dinner. We'd known each other in a business setting, so it didn't really feel inappropriate for me to go to dinner with this married man. And I also was like, "Where's your wife?" I don't know. Maybe when he set it up, he said she was coming too. I don't remember now. This was 10 years ago. But regardless, it felt a little weird to me then. And then he said they would have me out to the house, and it almost felt like, are you guys swingers? Just something felt a little off to me. Well, obviously nothing came of that. I go about my life and don't really ever think of him again. Well, fast forward to, I moved to DC, I moved back to Nashville, and I'm swiping on Bumble and I see him. And I thought, oh, I guess he got divorced. So I swipe right then, more just to like say, hey, what's going on in your life since I saw you 7 or 8 years ago? And he acted like they were separated, like the divorce was not final. He said he was staying at a hotel, but as the events unfolded, I really got the sense that she might not think they're separated. He said he wanted to use discretion, and I said, why? He said, well, not everybody knows about the divorce, whatever, whatever. And I said, then why are you on a dating app? Anybody could see you. And he said, oh, I'm in incognito mode. I said, oh, okay. And then he was really insistent that we meet for drinks that night. And I said, I mean, I'll meet you for a drink, but I'm not getting involved here. Like, this is just to catch up between friends. This is a no-go for me. You are still married. And he really kept insisting on that. He kept sending me selfies. I really get the ick from men who send me selfies, honestly. That's a story for another day. But the implication is that then I have to send them a selfie. And I'm like, I don't want to. You have 6 pictures of me. You don't need another picture of me. I didn't ask for this. You volunteered it, but I'm not sending you one. I didn't want to send you one in the first place. So he just kept asking for more pictures, and it just got really weird. He got a little sexual. So I obviously nipped that in the bud, but I basically assume that anyone who says they need to be discreet or they'll send more pictures later or whatever is married. Period. End of discussion. So if you see that, I doubt anybody listening to me would fall for that. Honestly, I wonder who does swipe right on that. Why would you swipe right on some random dude's torso who says he wants to be discreet? Obviously, he's a creeper, one way or another. But I guess it works for someone, or else they wouldn't do it. So if you're ever tempted, don't be. All right, let's get into this week's dates. If I can remember, I'm recording this so far after they happened, which was a mistake on my part, but I took pretty good notes for this week, I think. So we'll see. Monday, this was actually Memorial Day. This was last minute. This guy didn't even realize it was Memorial Day, which should have been my red flag, but I needed a date. So again, we're just saying yes. I have a theory that men who pick dive bars are not serious. And this guy supported it. The guy in Alaska who showed up with 2 girls to the date he invited me on and then went to talk to them outside, leaving me sitting at the bar talking to another dude. That was a dive. There have been many other times in my life that men have invited me to a dive, and I just don't think that anyone who picks a dive for a first date is serious about wanting to date you. Now, this is not about the money, because I am sympathetic to men who feel like they need to pay on dates, but this is a stranger that might be as weird. They might be going out with a woman who's as weird as these guys that I'm going out with. So this is not about the money. It's about, why do you want to pick a dark, dingy place that's probably going to be loud? It just, to me, is disrespectful and shows that you're putting in 0 effort. Pick a nice place that has a great happy hour and spend the same amount of money. The money is not the issue. It's the quality of the place and what that says about your interest in me, in my opinion. So you can disagree with me, but that is pretty much universally true in my experience. So disagree at your own peril. So we did go to a dive. We went to Lakeside Lounge in East Nashville, which honestly is one of my least favorite bars. If you're listening to this, owners of Lakeside, sorry. I'm just not your target demographic. So we'll just leave it at that. But that's where he picked, and, whatever. We're just going to get a drink. So it's fine. I'm already at this point, based on the fact that he doesn't know it's Memorial Day, that he picked a dive. I'm not anticipating that I'm going to be super interested in this guy, but we'll go see. So we get there, and I hope he doesn't listen to this. I don't think he will. I'm sure he's forgotten about me. He was either the worst listener of all time or dumb as a box of rocks. And I think it might have been a combo of the two. He did not ask me any questions. You might have heard me say with Jake a couple weeks ago, I was talking about this date who it felt like bullet points. That it was just swapping facts, not a conversation, just bullet points. And I learned so much about him. He's in a band, and he was telling me about this bar they played at downtown, which I've been to, but never at night. And so I was really curious, what's the vibe like on the weekend? I asked him this question 3 times, twice in the exact same wording, which is probably a character flaw of mine that I've developed recently, but I will just copy and paste verbally. So if you are not listening to me, I will just say the exact same thing I already did, which is a skill I used in working for the government in my emails often. I would just copy and paste what I had said previously that you did not answer. But now I'm doing that verbally, which is probably not the most polite thing to do, but neither is not listening. So I don't feel too bad. I asked this question 3 times. The third time I worded it a little bit differently. And finally, I learned that the reason he could not answer my question about what the vibe was like is because they had actually not played there yet. Totally fine. Just lead with that. He was acting like they played there regularly, had never said that they'd not been there, and I don't care at all whether you played there 25 times or none. I don't care. But don't give me the wrong impression and then not answer my question. This whole interaction, me observing his inability to ask questions, his inability to answer my questions, his inability to really have a good conversation. Now, that could be blamed on many things, alcohol, other substances. He was coming from work because, again, he didn't realize it was Memorial Day. So I don't think that was going on. I think this was an intellectual incompatibility between the two of us. And I have an unusual skill that I realized I had when I worked at a law school many years ago. I used to be able to guess people's LSAT scores, which LSAT is the law school admissions test. It's the entrance exam to get into law school. I used to be able to guess people's LSAT scores within 2 or 3 points. It's a scale of 120 to 180, so 2 or 3 points is pretty close. Up to a certain point, above about a 155, you were smart. Various levels of smart, but I couldn't really suss that out. But below a 155, I could pretty much guess where your score was going to fall. And I could guess this based on, I was an admissions counselor, so they would come talk to me based on the questions they asked, based on the research they had done on their own, which tied into the questions they asked, based on how they responded to my answers and how the conversation continued from there is how I would guess their score. And it kind of became my party trick. Very useless unless you happen to work at a law school. But when we would send up files to the admissions committee, every time somebody came to meet with me, I'd fill out a form and it would go in their file. So we'd send these files to the admissions committee and they would read my form and see what I'd guessed. And I was almost always right. In fact, I was telling a friend from college that I had been able to do this. And I, at this point, am far removed from the law school world. And I didn't really know him in an academic setting. We had worked on a play together and then kept in touch through Instagram. But he told me that he almost went to law school, but didn't, and asked me to guess his score, which is a dangerous game with a friend. I used to have that on my dating app, and then all these attorneys would ask me to guess, and then they'd get offended, either because I was right, probably because I was right, or I was way off. But anyway, it's hard to do when you have very limited information and somebody is not sitting in front of you having a full-on conversation, whatever. But my friend, I knew where he went to college because we went to the same school. I knew that he had gotten into law school but hadn't gone. So to me, I was like, well, you probably didn't get a significant scholarship or else you probably would have gone, but you were good enough to be admitted. So that gives me a sense of the range. He might have told me 1 or 2 other things. So based on the information he'd given me, I guessed and I hit it right on the head. I got his exact score. His mind was blown. It was so funny. So I say all that to say, I just kind of have this skill for assessing people. I've also taught since I was 23. I've taught college history, both in the classroom and online. So I just kind of have an ability to suss out how people are responding and what that means. Now, I have sometimes made mistakes. There was a guy, I might have talked about him on the podcast before. I used to call him Hot Dad. And in our first couple of encounters, I didn't think he was a brainiac. But as I got to know him more, he is very, very emotionally intelligent. And so he had different aspects of intelligence that really came out. So a one-time meeting certainly does not tell you everything you need to know about the many different forms of intelligence of a person. And I certainly am fallible. With this guy, though, I think I was right. We were not compatible, period. So that was the end of him. He did these men, I think I've talked about this before, but I am always really honored that people generally have a good time going on a date with me, but I am confused because this guy afterwards was like, we should go do karaoke sometime. Why? This was not fun. How could this possibly have been fun for you? How could two people be on such opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of having an enjoyable time? And that's going to be a theme for this week. I just hugged him and was like, okay, yeah, sure. And we never talked again. But I will say, our server at Lakeside Lounge was on something. Lakeside Lounge, you need to keep a tighter rein on your servers. He was spilling all kinds of things. He charged this guy for 2 beers. He only had 1. He was not very coherent. Certainly not professional. Okay, so that's Monday of this week. Tuesday, I did not have a date. I asked 4 guys. 2 gave me really vague answers. One said he had to help with his friend's kid's birthday party. I think he told me that over the weekend, and then I never heard from him again, but you're a 30 or 40 something year old man and you can't make a plan over the weekend because you have to help a buddy with his kid's birthday party? That seems fake. Another had responded to me that day 3 weeks after I sent his previous message. This is so dumb. People do this all the time. They don't even acknowledge that there has been a gap. 3 weeks have gone by. I said, what are you up to this weekend? 3 weeks later, he says, not much. I'm studying for the bar. I might take a break and go get a drink. And I said, well, that was 3 weeks ago, but I guess if you're studying for the bar, the answer is still the same. Do you want to go grab a drink? And nothing. Why? If you don't have time to date, totally get it. Just don't be on the apps or don't respond 3 weeks later and then disappear again. It's so dumb. I don't remember what happened to the other guys, but the point is I couldn't get a date for Tuesday. So we move on. And Wednesday, I go to Alaska. And you already know what happened there. It was glorious. Come back, absolutely dreading resuming this task here in Nashville. But again, the show must go on. So Friday night, I fly in real early Friday morning from Alaska. And I had intended to have a date Friday night, but I was wiped out and I hadn't lined anybody up. So I just crossed it off. What I did have was a phone call with a guy that I was supposed to have coffee with on Sunday. Now, let me say, my notes here say phone call with weird guy. I don't remember why I thought he was weird. So sorry, I cannot elaborate on that. What I can elaborate on is how much I hate phone calls. You'll recall that Lindsay Taylor, the dating coach, advised always having a phone call or FaceTime before going on a date and how much time it can save you. Here's why I personally hate them. I am not good on the phone. I hate talking on the phone unless it's to a really close friend or to my family or something where there's already established relationship. But with a stranger, it just feels very like, well, what are we supposed to talk about? Unless they're specifically calling, which I still don't like this, but if they're specifically calling to set up a date and there's a purpose for the phone call. But if you're just calling, I don't know what to talk about. So I end up being really awkward and I cut to the chase. I'm like, okay, so Sunday, what time? Where do you want to go? And that was basically the end of the phone call. And so it was no surprise to me, jumping ahead, that on Sunday he canceled it. And I'm sure it saved us time because I called him weird guy. So I'm sure my date with weird guy on Sunday would not have gone anywhere anyway, but it might have been a little more pleasant than this 6-minute phone call. Maybe not. At least I could have counted it instead of the 6-minute phone call. Oh well. Saturday, I had 2 dates though, so we're making up a little bit for lost time. I had my second date, you may remember, with the degular guy, who was a request of a friend to go out with this person, and so he's a really nice guy. I am not interested. He's nice. There's just nothing there. It was very pleasant both times. Conversation was good. I think he's a quality person. He's just not for me. So we were supposed to go see musicians in Musicians Corner, which is an outdoor music festival in Nashville. I guess that's the right word. It's on weekends in the spring and fall in Nashville, in Centennial Park. It's great. If you're in Nashville, you should go sometime. But it was raining, of course, because it rained for 3 solid months in Nashville. And so we went to a little Mexican place that's new, Tex-Mex. Little Ray is what it's called, and just got chips and margs. And it was nice. And then we went for a walk. Just not my person. And he had said something about wanting to hang out the next week, but then I didn't hear from him. So I thought maybe he got the vibe that I wasn't super interested. A couple weeks later, he texted me and said, "Hey, I know I've been out of touch, but you want to go get dinner?" And I said, "I'm just not sure that we're the right romantic fit, but I think you're really great." And he said, "Actually, I kind of was feeling the same too, but if you want to just get dinner as friends, let's go." I don't know that I'll take him up on that. I mean, my life is quite busy to fit in a random guy that I'm not romantically interested in and have no other connections with, but he's really nice, and actually I'm going to keep him in my head to set him up with somebody. He's not religious, so if you are religious, don't try to get me to set you up with him, because he is not. But he is a really good guy that I hope I can help find someone. So anyway, that's the end of the regular guy, unfortunately. Then I went on a date with, do you remember I had gone to Scoreboard, a local bar here, for crawfish boil, and I had talked to a couple guys there myself, one who looked like Liam Neeson, but he was not interested. And then this other guy, and I got his number, and I realized later I was supposed to follow up, but I had kind of forgotten, and by that point, didn't think it was probably worth following up anyway. So I didn't. Well, he out of the blue texted me, and I said, "I need to double up my dates today. Do you want to," I didn't say that part to him, but I said, "Do you want to hang out tonight?" And he happened to be free. So he picked a place really close to me, drove up from Murfreesboro, which if you're not from Nashville is probably about 40-minute drive. And I appreciated both of those things. There was just no chemistry at all. It was one of those conversations that towards the end, it's getting a little painful because there's just not much to talk about. So let's just go our separate ways and no hard feelings. For some reason, he walks me to my car and he kisses me. And I don't understand why these men do this. Why on earth did you think that was the next move? We hadn't touched each other. It was painful. How could it have been so painful for me and not for you? I don't understand. So I pulled back and patted him on the back, which I think gave the message that I was not interested. And then he walked to his car, and unfortunately, my starter has been going bad. I didn't know it was my starter yet. I thought it was my battery. So my car wouldn't start. So after this very awkward kiss and departure, I had to call him and be like, "Do you have jumper cables?" Which he did not, but fortunately, as I was talking to him, my car started, so we didn't have to see each other again. That's the end of that. It's a little awkward, but you gotta do what you gotta do. So now we're at Sunday. I've already told you the phone call guy from Friday night canceled with very little fanfare and immediately unmatched me on whichever dating app, I think it was Hinge, that we had matched on, which was fine because I didn't really want to go out with him anyway, and I was kind of expecting it. But again, now I don't have a date, and at that point, I just didn't bother setting one up last minute. And so that is week 5. I've got 1 full week and then 3 more days left, and then I am done. We'll see if I meet anybody in this remaining 10 days. I don't know. Hope is not springing eternal, but we'll see what happens. Next week's episode is just going to be me and a girlfriend chit-chatting about dating, bad dates, good dates, if we have any good stories. But we just want to invite you into our girl time, and I think that'll be a fun chat. And then the following week will be week 6, the last full week of dating. And then the next week will be my last 3 dates and a nice little wrap up to this experience. We'll look at some of the numbers and see what takeaways I have. I'll reveal if I met anyone worth meeting and what comes next for the podcast. So be sure you listen to the next couple weeks. It's going to be good. In the meantime, please keep sending in those bad and good date stories, the good relationship stories. Please also like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at 40 Dates Podcast. That's at the number 40 Dates Podcast. And that's it for this week. Thank you again for being here. And as always, wish me luck.